Welcome to the Me and Her Travel Podcast. This is episode 21, and we're excited to tell you about Egypt. We just got back. One of the most jaw-dropping, exotic places that we have ever been. Truly a dream come true, and we have tons of advice and fun stories to share. So much so, in fact, that we are going to break it up into two parts. The first part is going to be about Cairo and our impressions and our adventures at the pyramids, and also some imperative travel information for Egypt in general. And in part two, later on, we're going to talk and share about a cruise that we took from Luxor down the Nile and to places like Abu Simbel, starting out in Luxor, Valley of the Kings, Fine. We're excited to delve into the land of the pharaohs with you. So come along with us as we dig into Egypt.
Wheels up. We're gonna be two hearts running wild. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Julie, and I'm here with my husband, Tony.
Hello.
We are so grateful that you've taken the time to click play today. We are now over 20 episodes in, and hopefully getting a little bit better with each one that we do. It has been a learning curve for both of us from the production standpoint, which, by the way, that is all Tony. I have nothing to do with that. But also from the conversational and delivery aspect. We are trying to maintain a balance between just offloading like tons of information to you, but also trying to keep it entertaining and personal. We strive for a slightly different angle on our travel podcasts, hoping to bring you a fresh perspective or to mention things that you might not hear on another podcast of the same topic. For those of you who have been listening in bi-weekly as these debut, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you. And for those of you just tuning in today to hear all about Egypt, we're glad you're here.
So, Egypt. Egypt is one of those places that Julie and I both have admired from afar, fascinated and intrigued by it, but yet wasn't on our immediate travel bucket list either until one day an offer landed in our lap that we couldn't refuse. My college housemate and his wife were putting together a tour group to go to Egypt, and they invited us along, so we jumped at the chance.
Yes, this was definitely an opportunity that we could not pass up. Not only were we excited to travel with a group of 8 friends, but for the first time in a really long time, I don't even know how long actually, honey, it's been a long time. We didn't need to do any research or extensive planning ourselves. We could just sit back and relax and let the beauty of Egypt unfold around us. And since planning a trip to Egypt one day on our own seemed really daunting, much more so than planning one to Europe, for example. So this was an easy out for us, and we were just happy to take a back seat and let somebody else shepherd us around.
So that goes, to tour or not to tour. And that, for people to understand if they plan their own trips, that kind of means something. This might be an upcoming episode for us to discuss the pros and cons of taking a tour versus planning it on your own. But for this destination in particular, it was great. It was great that we had a tour, and we highly recommend that.
Absolutely.
Unless you're a real pro, this might be the only way to do Egypt. There are so many different locations to see, and with all of the transfers, including buses, in-country flights, cruise ships, just boat tours, it's nice to have it all facilitated for you and translated for you, as Arabic is not something that you can try and just speak, broken Arabic. It's something that we don't have in our vocabulary.
No, that's not a language that we're accustomed to at all. So let's give you an overview of this trip that we took. So the name of the tour that we booked was the 12-day Crown of Egypt, with a 7-day Nile cruise on the MS Esplanade through Gate 1 Travel. And you can look them up by gate1travel.com. I had taken another tour with this company in the past to Spain with my mom, and I knew that they were fantastic. And our friends who invited us along, they've taken about 10 tours with them, like all over the world. So they are very big fans of this company. It is tried and true. And so we felt really comfortable booking with them. I encourage you to check out their website because they do offer trips for a wide variety of destinations and different tour sizes, activity levels, and degrees of escort, from fully escorted like we had on this one to primarily independent, with them just facilitating your airfare, your hotel, or your rental car. The prices we have found to be incredibly reasonable, maybe one of the best out there, actually. Sometimes I wonder how in the heck are they making money on this? But we didn't feel like we had any comfort or quality sacrificed whatsoever. I really have only good things to say about them. And no, we are not like a,
This is not a
we're
commercial.
not paid by the company, but maybe we
Although that'd be
should be.
awesome. So this trip we did in early September, and it was a great time to go. You got to remember that's still summer, but it was a great time to go because it was the first trip of the season for our guide and for Gate One and a lot of the companies to do these vacation tours in Egypt because it's so hot in the summertime that they just can't do it. So our guide Omar was
Amazing, amazing,
amazing.
Omar.
Omar is the best. He's 37 years Egyptologist and tour guide. So
Yeah.
he was fresh off his long break for the summer because it's so hot. He get to spend time with his family, and he was excited to be back at it. So he had lots of energy and enthusiasm. So recommendation in the late summer, early fall is good because of that. Everybody's excited to be doing what they're doing. In addition, our cruise ship was just recently renovated on the upper deck and inside, but the whole upper deck, the sun deck, was completely redone, and it is out of 310 cruise ships on the Nile. People agree that it might be the coolest and the best top deck.
It was amazing.
Our ship hadn't had all the tourists in the high season yet, so which the high season is from October to April, with November to January being the peak time. People go during those months because it's generally cooler. Our lines were much shorter on the tours and in some places totally non-existent because there was just nobody there yet. And real quick, if you were wondering about tourist visas, you do need them to go to Egypt if you're coming from the United States, but you can get them once you land at the airport. It's really easy, quick. You can pay with American dollars or the Egyptian pounds, whatever you want. But no problem. You just hand it to your tour handler and they took care of it all for us. So don't worry about trying to get your visa in advance.
Yeah, you don't have to go online and mess with all that. It was really slick. So, Egypt in September, it was hot when we were there. It was high 90s and low 100s. And our guide said it was one of the nicest Septembers they'd had in a really long time, meaning that it wasn't nearly as hot as it could have been. But tip number one, people, please do not underestimate the intense sun and the heat of Egypt. It is a desert and it beats down mercilessly on you. And you really do need to take some steps to function in it properly. So, hats, for example, are an absolute, unequivocal must. I also had an umbrella that I had gotten in Ravello on our trip to Italy, and I brought that with me. So, that was kind of nice. But for some of the larger sites that you actually tour for multiple hours, I was really glad that I had it because there is just not a lot of shade. And all of the other tour groups are also fighting for that same patch of shade. One person in our group had one of those neck cooling towels, and she was really grateful that she had that. Me personally, I had three fans. I had a battery operated one, I had a like a regular handheld accordion fan, and then I also had one for my bedside at night. But the heat and the sun, they're also very zapping. So you're going to be tired and you really do need to stay hydrated. That's probably goal number one. Thankfully, our hotel had free water bottles in the room, and Gate One was amazing. They offered three large water bottles per day per person on the bus. They kept them in a cooler. We could just take them as we wanted. And we just felt really taken care of and actually really hydrated, probably more on this trip than we did even when we went to Italy on our own last summer.
And there's another tip there. When your tour offers you water and you have a full bottle on you, take the extra waters. Bring them to your room, put them in your bag, because later on you're going to want to be using them to brush your teeth, doing different things, which is also another thing we should mention is that you should not drink the water in Egypt. It's fine for them, but when you come with our stomachs that we have from the United States and little bugs and parasites, different things, it's just not safe. They can say in the big hotels, yeah, you can drink the water, and maybe so in the big fancy hotels, but why take the chance? You do not want to wreck anything on your trip. Just drink bottled water.
Yeah, I didn't even brush my teeth in the hotel, even though it was
No, you brushed your teeth. You just didn't do it with their water.
sorry, yes, yes. Let me let me rephrase. I did brush my teeth, but I did use the bottled water because I have been sick in Africa before and I really had no desire to do it again. Unfortunately,
Fortunately.
later on, we'll talk about it even more probably in episode 2 of Egypt. But while we were on our cruise, I did end up missing a half day of touring, and I was so sad about that. And I had gotten the Pharaoh's Revenge, which is,
That's funny.
similar to Montezuma's Revenge if you go to Mexico. And actually, most people in our tour group also had the same issues, except for
Me.
yeah, I don't know. He's got a strong stomach. He did not get it, but I highly recommend that you bring with you Pepto-Bismol or Imodium, and preferably, this is really important, people, get a prescription from your doctor ahead of time for an antibiotic like a Z-Pack. Should you get a stomach bug, this will save your life. The prescription will kill the bacteria, whereas Pepto and Imodium, they only treat the symptoms. So start taking it the very first moment you feel a rumble in your tummy, just take it. Sadly, too, our tour guide even recommended that we don't eat the street food from the vendors. And surprisingly, he also discouraged us from going to the restaurants, which I thought that was a little bit
Other
strange.
than the big hotels.
Yeah, he said other than the big hotels, even some of the restaurants, they just don't have the same kind of sanitation standards that we do back home. And also, they probably wash their fruits and vegetables in their local tap water. And that's the biggest issue. So we just can't handle those kinds of the bacteria that they have. Also, hand sanitizer is your friend. Have it handy at all times. And I know this is all kind of a gross conversation, but it's super important information for you as a traveler because it is really not fun to have your epic trip ruined because you can't leave your bathroom or hotel room.
The good thing about this itinerary that we had is that we flew into Cairo, and for the first few days we spent there, so it gave us a chance to, you know, get our bodies acclimated to the time change and also to the heat. And it's nice to land and stay in one spot and give your body a chance to catch up as well. So it also gave your luggage a chance to catch up too, should it need to be.
You never know these
we
days.
we were lucky; we didn't have any of those problems. We stayed at the Hotel Sofitel Cairo, downtown Nile. A lot of words there. It was a great location. It was just across the street from the Nile River, so we had it really great views, especially from the upper floors. And we recommend asking for a high room and one that's facing the Nile. Our friends had one of those great rooms. We had a back alley on the third floor facing dogs that were barking all night. So
Yeah, a parking lot. And what's tricky there is it was really funny because the Nile is right there, but it's across the street. And you might have to ask a local to help you get across the street because that was insanity.
crossing the street is definitely a challenge. It's like playing human Frogger. Each person just needs listen. You can try and like let's all go together. Nope, that's not going to happen. Every person just has to go for it on their own and kind of just race across the street. The people who live there, even the kids and the dogs, which are everywhere, by the way, they have no problem just walking over lane and just kind of just waiting in the middle of the road as people are ripping around them and they're crossing. And for us, it's like it's shocking because there are no stoplights. Literally, there's no stoplights, no direction for anything.
We had some people in our group that never went across the street to go down to the Nile and walk along it, but there's lots of really lovely shops and restaurants that we didn't go to, but there are some there, and they never even crossed the street because they were too afraid to do so because it is literally zany traffic. Cairo is crazy. The cars just come and go and they merge and they pass. Most roads don't even have painted lines on them. And like you mentioned, I think we only saw one stoplight in the entire country. It is a renegade free for all with cars honking constantly, and that's how they kind of alert others of their presence before they pass. And at night, a lot of cars didn't even have headlights. It was crazy. And you'd see, it was very common to see like a family of four all riding on a motorbike, on motorcycles. There's tons of traffic. There's white vans just stuffed with people. They use them like local taxis there. But by no means should anybody from the United States consider renting a car here unless you were born here, because that would be total craziness.
I'm sure people do it, but it is insanity. Um,
I don't know.
there's another reason why this tour was great is because we didn't have to navigate all that traffic. The bus driver, we had different bus drivers for different sites, but the bus driver did it all, and they are so good. We saw them make turns and do things with the buses that I can't even do with like a little, smart car. It was crazy how good they were on these streets. And it just takes all of that pressure off of you. You can
Hmm.
just sit in the bus, get on your, drink some water, watch the sights go by. It's awesome.
Yeah, and we should mention that when you are on a tour like this, they pick you up at the airport, they handle your luggage, they basically hold your hand from start to finish. And that is really nice when you're in a country where there are no signs in English or even with recognizable letters. So it just felt so much safer.
Safety. Let's talk about that because that's probably the number one thing people have said to us when we told them that we were going to be going to Egypt. Is Egypt safe? Should you be going? I'm
Is
talking. I'm
Egypt
I'm
safe?
talking like my mom now. You shouldn't be going to Egypt. Um, to quote our tour guide extraordinaire Omar, yes, Egypt is so safe. The only thing that you really have to worry about is pickpockets and swindlers, but not violent crime. Okay, now according to the U.S. State Department, Egypt is at a level 2 out of 4, which just means that exercise increased caution. But that's the same level 2 that applies to France, Italy, Spain, Germany, and the UK. It's safe. It's okay. We felt very safe walking around on our own and in the shops down by the Nile and even in the busy markets.
Yeah, I was surprised. I actually felt very safe in Egypt, even in Cairo. I felt like I was way more on high alert in places like Barcelona, London, and even Rome. But if it makes people feel any better, this was interesting. We did have a security man traveling with our group at all times, and he did have a gun on him. And I asked Omar, our tour guide, about this, and he said, "Oh, don't worry. He's provided by the Department of Tourism, not Gate 1, and it is required by law for any tour groups of over 9 people. And this is not because Egypt is unsafe, but it is more to safeguard their tourism industry. Tourism is a huge source of income for Egypt. They can't afford for any foreign tourists to have any bad experiences whatsoever. So, the most that our security guy really ever had to do was disperse the cute little entrepreneurial children that were selling bracelets and other items to us."
So, other than the crazy traffic and the diminutive salespeople, what were your overall impressions of Cairo, Julie?
Well, I didn't know exactly what to expect, but because the country has such a long history, I thought the city would be a hodgepodge of different kinds of buildings sprung up over time, but I was really surprised to see such like block-like uniformity with their housing. It seemed like the whole city was brown, made up of multi-story buildings of that same color brown and the same size, kind of laid out in grids. Every window, it seemed like, had one of those attached air conditioners, and then the roofs were just peppered with satellite dishes. There are a lot of unfinished buildings or buildings in disrepair, and I noticed that at the bottom level of most of these buildings, you would see like the storefronts and retail spaces, and then above that would be the apartments. And there are people walking everywhere, driving, walking, just at all times of the day and night. What did you think? What were your impressions?
Um, I thought about what I was going to see there, and knowing that the Nile goes through there, that was probably the biggest thing for me because of all the brown that you said. I mean, everything's dirty, dusty from the desert creeping in from all sides. But when you get down by the Nile, it's the only green that you'll see in Cairo, and it's very lush and tropical right along the river. And it was good because I also got to see some birds. I like that.
Birds, birds.
Um, I was also surprised by the giant advertising billboards that are everywhere, and they, like even in like the, you know, very low income areas, there's these humongous billboards along the roads, and they all seem to be about either tourism for the pyramids or the big museums, or for their president, which I think has an ego problem because he is not well liked. It sounds like from the people. He is now in for life, and he is promoting himself all the time. You know that and Cairo is a humongous city with over 22 million people in the larger metropolitan area, which is roughly a quarter of the entire population of the country. Egypt is also predominantly Muslim, which is about, uh, there's different things that say, but probably anywhere from 85 to 75% Muslim, and the rest of it is Christian, which was interesting to know, and I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and it's important to acknowledge because some of their customs might be very different from those that we're used to. For example, most Muslims do not drink alcohol, and it's not even served in restaurants other than the restaurants at the big tourist hotels. In addition, they dress much more conservatively than we typically do as Americans, so you may want to take that into consideration when you're packing. The general rule is that when you're at a very touristy site, like the pyramids or even some of the ancient temples, which are pagan, by the way, not Muslim, then you can wear shorts and t shirts and touristic type clothes. However, if you're visiting a religious site like one of the mosques, or when you are mixing with the local population, so at regular restaurants or in their large markets, then you should dress accordingly, which means that women should have their shoulders covered and wear a dress or pants that fall below the knees, and men should wear pants. And dressing like this just shows respect for their culture.
We also did visit in Cairo on one of the days the Citadel of Saladin and the Muhammad Ali Mosque in Cairo. That's also known as the Alabaster Mosque. So when you go there for the first time, do not think that this is the boxer Muhammad Ali Mosque, and they named after him. He was actually a very prominent first modern ruler of Egypt, and Cassius Clay took his name from him. So don't make that mistake. It was a beautiful place. It's if you're looking at Cairo, just so you know, there's the valley that where the Nile is, and then there's the western bank, which is over where the pyramids are. But on the eastern bank, there's these high ridges and bluffs, and this mosque is up at the top of that, along with some other things up there in housing and different things. But it's a beautiful view from up at the top where this mosque sits, and you can look down on all of Cairo. It's a great place to also learn more about Islam and the transition of Egypt history from the early dynasties to the modern day Muslim country that it is.
Yeah, and on the other side of the spectrum, we also visited a Coptic Orthodox church, which was located in the old part of Cairo, also called Coptic Cairo. And Coptic basically just means the Egyptian Christians. So this Egyptian Christian church was built in the 4th or 5th centuries, and it's called the Hanging Church because of its location built on top of the southern tower gate of the old Babylon fortress. It also is on top of some Roman pillars, and its nave is suspended above the passage.
But why is it really, really important?
Well, it's really cool because, well, it's also called St. Mary's Church because it's dedicated to the Virgin Mary. But what's neat is that you get to go down into a tunnel that holds a shelter, kind of a cave like area where Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus lived temporarily while they were hiding out in Egypt, avoiding King Herod's reign of terror on children. That was a really impactful moment to just take in that space where the Holy Family had rested and to walk where they walked.
They had the cave area where they sheltered when they were in Cairo, and they had all the stones laid out there. It was pretty surreal to sit there and see that and know that this is a place that the Holy Family was at.
There's also a lot of artwork in there and some statues and other kinds of things that date way back that are also really interesting to see. But
Well, around Egypt, when Mary, Joseph, and Jesus traveled, they went to like 17 major areas where they stayed for a while, and at all 17 of those locations, churches or large, uh, you know, places have popped up around them. So this church that's there now. This Coptic church was built around that site, 4th and 5th century. So it wasn't even a church at the time when they were staying. They were just staying in the fortress of Babylon, and now there's these big, huge, famous churches at all these locations because they're honoring the locations where they stayed. So it's kind of neat.
yeah, that's cool.
We really liked the mosque and the church, and you get to hear about Cairo's main attractions. The pyramid is what most people want to hear about.
Dun dun dun.
The pyramids of Giza, I should say. Giza is just to the west of downtown Cairo, and for anybody that thinks that you got to go traveling way out into the desert to find these pyramids, no, it goes pyramids, Pizza Hut, and then downtown Cairo. I mean, literally, there is a Pizza Hut just outside the pyramids, and these pyramids there's a national park that's made there, and then all of these pyramids and the park are right up against the population of Cairo and the river, so you can see the pyramids from all over Cairo. We did this on our very first day there, and that was pretty cool because we were pretty excited to, you want to see the pyramids first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I don't have the amazing photos that I wanted to have because there's some things that you got to know when you go into the pyramids or into a lot of these larger, really, really famous sites in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
They don't allow professional photography grade lenses. So I have my big rig camera that has this really nice big lens on it. I was going to do some stuff there.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me. They confiscated it at the door, even though I had asked in advance, like, is this going to be okay? And they said, yeah, no. And then also my Ray-Ban Meta glasses. So I have Meta glasses that I love. And they saw those on me and said, nope, you can't have these. I'm like, what?
The problem is they're
They're
prescription.
they're my prescription lenses. They're like, I'm going to be blind in this place. They let me turn them off, and I promised I would not use them. They let me take them in. But I could not bring in my lens, so my camera was just basically my iPhone at that point. So also, no tripods. You're not allowed to bring any tripods into these sites because they don't want people setting up and knocking things over, and so they just don't allow it. Maybe a little handheld one the size of your palm, but not anything for a camera rig.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people in our group had like the selfie stick. I
Yep.
don't even know. Would they let you have those?
Yep, you could have a selfie stick because you're not setting it down anywhere.
Okay. Well, so the pyramids, for all intents and purposes, is kind of it's a giant photo op. There is a small museum in the visitor center with photos and diagrams and the history explaining the building process of the pyramids, etc. But that's just so that you can better understand them when you get through the doors to go see them. Once out of the site, and by the way, you do have to be shuttled to and from the main building. So you go in, you buy your ticket, and then you all get on buses and they shuttle you out to the pyramid location. You are not allowed to climb them. So basically, once you're out there, it's just an opportunity to walk around from get different views, take photos.
Unless, of course, you have purchased the extra ticket that allows you to climb inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu. That's the biggest pyramid. In which case, what you do is you get you pay $30 in advance, and then you get to go up about 20, 30 feet up on the blocks, the big stones, and then you go into the old entrance, and from that entry fee, you are allowed to climb up and into the king's chamber in the largest pyramid.
Okay, so I have to tell you, I watched a YouTube video on this before we left. Tony didn't know that I did this originally. And because I was really curious, because I'm fascinated by Egypt and the pyramids, and I was really excited about doing this. And I watched that video and I came away saying to myself, no way in heck was I going to do that.
You didn't say heck.
Well, this is a podcast. I'm trying to be polite. But the man on the video was literally panting in the suffocating heat of the interior of the pyramid. And he was navigating these steep steps and these tight corridors. And often there was only a few feet of clearance over his head. So he was literally crouched over. It looked like a claustrophobia inducing nightmare of a climb. And then when he finally got into the chamber that he arrived at, it looked kind of anticlimactic to me. So I didn't know what to do. But when I was standing in the visitor center with Tony and he was going to go buy his ticket, I got a severe case of FOMO. And I also really hate wimping out on things and being a baby, which is how I once ended up jumping out of an airplane, which I never wanted to do. But that's
Or
another
want to do again.
story.
Or want to do
even
again.
care to do again. But check. Anyway, I made Tony get me the ticket.
Very cool experience. Glad we did it, even for the $60 combo for the two of us. And how many people get to say that they climbed inside the Great Pyramid?
Well, there were about 50 people in our line heading up, and even more when we were coming back down. And by the way, there's only one tunnel or passageway. So there's one way in and one way out, and you have to share that space. You each have to pass each other hunched over and squeezing by. But smart tip, if you get to the site ASAP in the morning, you can be one of the first people to climb up at your own pace without the mass of people, and then you can get better pictures too.
Yeah, because when you're going through and you're hunched over a lot of the passage, if you're the first ones in, you're just going all one direction. But when you turn around and come back, guaranteed there's a line of people outside that are now coming at you. So when you're going down, you're shimmying past other people. But yeah, you can go to our Facebook page if you want to see photos and videos of what it looked like. You get a sense of the accomplishment of climbing approximately like 40% into the pyramid. And that was built over 4,000 years ago.
Man, wow, it's crazy.
There wasn't much else to see in the final chamber except, and a huge exception, is the mind-blowing comprehension of the sarcophagus. Now, let me explain this. The sarcophagus is in the king's chamber, which is up in the middle of the pyramid. This sarcophagus is which held you know, the, the king, the pharaoh. Now,
His mummy.
his mummy. But the sarcophagus is bigger, much bigger than the actual passageway in and out of the, the pyramid. So this is where it gets crazy. When they built the pyramid, they must have built the pyramid up into a little bit of a platform. Then they built a floor and they put a sarcophagus in the middle of that floor, which they then built a room around. And then they built the entire pyramid around that room with the sarcophagus already in place. So imagine sitting out in the desert and you see the sarcophagus sitting up on a little floor up in the middle of a lumpy pyramid. And then they go over centuries and centuries building the rest of that pyramid up. It's mind-blowing that they had the foresight to put a sarcophagus in there because it's way too big to be able to get in the tunnel.
It was huge. So the whole experience was truly remarkable. And all in all, I actually didn't think it was that bad. It was scarier in my head. And on that stupid video, I probably shouldn't have watched it because it just freaked me out. There are a couple tight spots, but honestly, you get through them pretty quickly. It's a pretty quick walk. I highly recommend doing it. It's just something.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do that's really cool is outside of the pyramids is to take a camel ride or a horse-drawn buggy. This is on the west side of the pyramids, and they do this over there so that they can walk you into an area where you get to see the pyramids all lined up with the little pyramids. And that, I think, was $25 per person. Worth it as well. Again, most people in our group did the camels, but some did the horses. And this might be a good time to mention that we paid that money to the tour guide, and the tour guide set it up while we were on the bus so that we didn't have to go and try and haggle with the people out there with the camels. We were surprised by how often we could pay for things in the US dollars, by the way. So always make sure that you bring your bills and keep them smaller denominations like 5s, 10s, 20s, and 1s, because they can't have any tears or creases in them. So make sure that they're all fresh and new ones, because their banks won't allow them to keep them. So we tried to pay somebody with a $5 bill, and they came running back after us down the road one time because they realized that it was torn. And we feel bad, so you got to give them a new one.
Yeah, it's also helpful to get some Egyptian pounds once you arrive, but we actually found that it was cheaper to get it in Egypt than it was from ordering it from the banks back home or even getting it at the airport. And our guide just helped us get some when we got there, so there was no real hurry. It is easier to pay with pounds in some of the shops for smaller souvenir items. And also, you do have to pay for most public restrooms, but it's only like 10 or 20 Egyptian pounds, which is basically like a quarter or 50 cents. So if you're paying with American dollars each time, then you are way overpaying. So it is nice to have those pounds. And another important side note, ladies, you might want to bring some extra toilet paper and a Ziploc with you, because the bathroom attendants will typically only give you a square or two when you enter the restroom. And also, all toilet paper in Egypt goes in a wastebasket. It does not get flushed down the toilet unless you are in a big European style hotel. Otherwise, it's wastebaskets only, as their sewer systems just cannot handle the paper.
Okay, fun talk. Let's get back to talking about the camels.
I know.
Sorry. Most people in our group chose the camel rides, but some did do the horse and buggy. I think there's pros and cons to both, but I think some of them were a little disappointed that it wasn't as fun, perhaps, as riding a camel. I mean, how cool to be riding a camel outside the pyramids. But it was challenging for some, because when the camels were very friendly and calm, but when you mount them, you get on them and it's sitting on the ground, and then it extends its back legs first, which causes their hind end to rise up really high in a steep angle. So you have to like almost be bucking bronco the way you ride them just for them to stand up, and so you don't want to fall off the front. Once they're able to stand up, you got the front legs. You just grip on with your legs and hold on like you're riding a horse. And then there's a little pommel in the front to hang on to as well. So it's pretty easy from that point riding. And they're all tied together by ropes, so there's no risk of them trotting off and you leaving the group and running out into the desert.
I didn't realize how tall they are, and it was actually kind of tricky hanging on and sitting way back so I didn't fall off. But once you get up there, it's fine. I mean, it's high, but they amble slowly, and I never really felt scared. It was an interesting perspective to be up there, and I just imagined myself as like a desert nomad in my camel caravan. But then I got distracted taking photos of the pyramids because it's just such a cool thing to be there. The round trip, I don't think was very long, maybe like 30 minutes from start to finish. But the photo up of us in front of our camels, in front of the pyramids, is it's my favorite picture of the
It's
whole
pretty cool.
trip. It's so cool. But side note, a little important tip for the ladies. We're going to laugh about this forever. Do not wear a dress the day that you go visit the pyramids because if you end up taking a camel ride, you will be straddling a large animal and it will not go well for you. One of our friends had a short dress on that day. We didn't know that we'd be riding camels, and there was literally nothing she could do. She didn't want to miss out on the camel ride, so it was hysterical. She got up on
We
this
laughed
camel. She
forever.
was literally spread eagle. Luckily for her, I did have a scarf that I loaned her that she could lay across her lap. But let's just say that the camel attendant was very attentive to her.
And he wanted to take lots of photos of us.
Oh my gosh. It was so funny. We couldn't stop
We do
laughing.
have some pretty funny photos. After the pyramids, we bust over to the other main attraction, the Sphinx. For this, you needed to line up and go through a very busy corridor with lots of vendors, where you're able to, take some photos. But you are not able to touch the Sphinx or get that close to it. It keeps you off to the side a little bit. Honestly, it was cool to see and check out off our bucket list, but it was perhaps a little underwhelming because you couldn't get too close to it, and it's very much you're going through the trough of the people to get to the spot where you can see it.
Yeah, I agree that the Sphinx was it was cool. It was good to see, but it was very, very busy, packed with people. But that whole day in general was amazing. And if anyone listened to our Pompeii podcast previously, you know that I was enamored with Egypt as a child. And to see the pyramids in person, to be on camelback, staring at those just majestic feats of human determination and engineering, it was really a dream come true for
By
me.
the aliens. Just
We
kidding.
said that to our tour guide. He got so mad.
Yeah, by the way, they're very proud of their Egyptian heritage and how they built the pyramids, and they think that they know it down to a exact science how it was done. I'm still not sold yet, but I'm open to all kinds of ideas as to how they were built. Aliens
Well,
might be one of them.
he didn't appreciate that joke. But anyway, so lucky for us, we did all that in day one. It was awesome. So there was so much more beauty in dropping sites to come.
Another fantastic thing to do in Cairo, and it's probably another one of the biggest attractions, is the Grand Egyptian Museum, appropriately nicknamed the Gem.
So
Uh,
cool.
This is a brand new uber modern museum that was just built over the last few years. It opened up like last year to the public, but it is not opening for its grand opening until November of this year, 2025. And that's because they still have a bunch of stuff that they're moving over from the old Egyptian museum. And before they finish that conversion, they are going to have the big, presentation. But there's one thing in particular that this museum is known is unique to. It's the only museum in the world dedicated to one civilization, Egyptology. So, but what makes it? Julie's got a little bit more to tell about why it's a little bit of a bummer for us on this trip.
Well, yeah, so this museum is bonkers big. It's a massive $1 billion complex, and it's located only 2 kilometers away from the pyramids. When it's finished, it will house over 100,000 artifacts, 4,500 of which will be from King Tut's tomb alone. And don't even get me started on that because this was my biggest disappointment from the trip. King Tut's famous death mask, the one that's made of solid gold and adorned with gems, yeah, temporarily unviewable because they were still working on the transfer of artifacts. I was so, so, so bummed because that was one of the main things that I wanted to see. So,
I did too.
well, when you think of the pyramids, you think of the Sphinx and King Tut, and you envision that mask. But it's okay. I was able to meet Mr. King Tut himself in the Valley of the Kings. More on that in our next podcast. And that helped assuage my disappointment. But still, I wanted to see that mask myself.
Can't have it all. Anyways, you could spend the whole day in this museum as it has, all the sites and all the things that you want to see from artifact wise, but it also has a ton of shops, restaurants, and the lottery for the macaron fix. They have high
Mm,
end stores. There's a Starbucks in there. Anyways, we love our pistachio and lemon
we
macarons, by
sure
the way.
do. Yum,
So I
yum.
actually bought some, and I actually was late getting back to the group because I was stuck in there trying to buy
Your
these cookies to get
macarons.
back. So, anyways, um, The exhibits will take you days to see them all. And once they get the King Tut museum aspect moved over, you could spend multiple days there for sure.
Yeah, so some of the highlights are the massive stone statue of Ramses II that greets you right when you walk in. This 3,200-year-old, 36 feet tall, and 83-ton red granite sculpture was one of the very first things they moved into in 2018. They moved it into this space. Honestly, I don't even know how they did it. It is so gigantic, but it used to be in the middle of a busy traffic circle right in downtown Cairo, but it was suffering so badly from the pollution, they moved it as early as they possibly could before the museum was even open.
You also get to see tons of statues, sarcophagi, papyrus manuscripts, paintings, golden thrones, bed frames, jewelry, mummies, even crocodile and bird mummies, which is really cool, and a gold-plated girl, wood carvings, pottery, children's toys, and items from everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. We were there for probably 3 hours, and it just wasn't enough time because there's just so much to take in. And for someone who lives in a very new country, by Egypt standards or anybody's standards, really, the history and the longevity of these items took my breath away. And for so many of them to be in such good condition, you could literally wear that jewelry today. I love that stuff. You're just looking at unbelievable treasure that came out of so many temples and tombs from all around Egypt. It was amazing.
That's another point to why we might have another conversation some other day on a podcast about tour or not to tour.
Hmm.
Is that we were there for 3 hours. We could have probably spent 2 days there, and especially when
True.
King Tut, there's no way you're going to be able to get through this museum once they add King Tut's,
Artifacts.
artifacts. There's no way you're getting out of there in 3 hours and feeling good about yourself that you got to see it all. So
Yeah.
that's on a tour. But if you did things on your own, you could stay there all day,
Yeah,
one or
because
2
we
days,
only had so much time with our tour. He gave us,
right?
like 3 hours, and then we got to get back on the bus. So that is true. Sometimes you do get shortchanged a little bit when you have a schedule like that, as opposed to just doing things on your own.
We'll talk about that some other
Yeah,
time.
pros and cons.
All right. Speaking of the temples and tombs, we have so much more information to share about the wonderful temples we saw along our cruise down the Nile, which started down in Luxor. And we can't wait to tell you more about it and our
Hmm.
experience at Abu Simbel and the Valley of the Kings. These are amazing sites. So much cool things to tell you about them.
Oh, yeah.
But that is going to have to wait for our next episode because it's time to wrap this one up.
Yeah, so this is it for Cairo right now, but we should mention a couple other things. Like, for example, you can take a lovely boat cruise up and down the River Nile right in Cairo. It's really pretty, particularly at sunset and the early evening, because so many of the boats light up at night. So many of them offer dinner cruises as well. And you can look on Viator or get your guide if you want to book one of those in advance, or literally just go down to the waterfront. In front of our hotel, the Sofitel, there were so many different companies that you could choose from. We didn't do that at this time because we had a whole week-long cruise coming up, but that would be something fun to do. So there are a lot of things from churches and mosques and the pyramids and the Sphinx and
Okay,
the
that's enough.
museums. A lot of fun stuff to do in Cairo.
So we have to wrap this up because we are leaving in 8 minutes. We are heading to the airport. So we've got to wrap this up.
Yep.
And we want to say thank you for listening, following us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you do. Please like us. Please leave a comment. Please give us a review. We would love to hear how we're doing because, we've been doing this for over a year now on these podcasts. We think we're getting better. Maybe we're not. You tell us. Hopefully it's good feedback.
Well,
but
hopefully it's good information. It helps them plan their trip.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're entertained a little bit too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So all of that, thank you. We need to go to the airport because we're going on our next adventure, and we'll tell you about that because we're going to be recording some podcasts live while we're on
While
this
we're
trip,
there.
and we'll tell you more about it on the next podcast. But
Yeah.
until then,
Wheels up.